In 2019, a prosecutor heard an interesting story from a defense lawyer. It was about a San Diego police detective named James Needham.
He told me that Detective Needham, who was assigned to the case, during a follow-up interview, had set up to be arrested by ICE.
That would be a scandal if true. California's sanctuary laws prevent local police officers from helping ICE enforce federal immigration law. The prosecutor took that allegation with a grain of salt.
My first thought that crossed my mind was like, okay, this is a defense attorney exaggerating what happened and probably speculating.
So she called the detective.
And then Detective Needham said, in his exact words, I'm going to slow this down here to make sure I get it right, I agreed to work with them to set up so they could arrest him. So my stomach dropped, and I know that I paused probably for several seconds. Right. And I said, okay, what did you do?
This audio comes from a police internal affairs investigation. It found Needham cooperated with ICE. He set up a meeting with the undocumented immigrant who was a crime victim, and he told federal agents the time and location. The man was eventually deported. Police investigators found Needham lied in multiple ways, but we don't know if Needham was ever disciplined. 1/3 of almost 100 misconduct cases released by San Diego police are missing disciplinary records.
A department may have disciplined the officer, but then disposed of the records due to the department's record retention schedule.
Matthew Halgren is a lawyer who specializes in the First Amendment. He says there are multiple explanations for the missing records.
It's also possible that the department either never disciplined the officer just because it chose not to, or that the officer resigned or retired before the discipline could be issued.
That was the case for Needham. He retired 13 days after the investigation was finished. He could not be reached for comment. Whatever the reason behind the missing records, activists say the lack of transparency reveals a lot about the police department.
This was a culture within SDPD.
That's Tasha Williamson, a social justice advocate in San Diego. She says that SDPD's own policy calls for terminating officers caught lying, but that doesn't always happen.
We've seen officers that have been terminated for lying, and we've seen officers who haven't been terminated for lying. You have a policy that says that if you lie, you should be fired. However, that is not a policy that they adhere to.
State Senator Nancy Skinner wrote the law that makes these misconduct records public.
When you look at public safety in particular and police, the nature of their work, for them to do their job, there has to be trust between the public and the officers.
And there's another benefit to Skinner's law, which is called SB 16. It's also meant to help other police agencies vet new hires.
Really, before SB 16, if you were the hiring agency, you couldn't get that record from the other department. You could not find out that that officer had this history of dishonesty. And so you might hire unknowing that you're hiring somebody with a history of dishonesty. Now, under SB 16, the hiring agency has to ask for any disciplinary records or investigatory records from the agency.
Skinner says SB 16 doesn't prevent officers from resigning before they're disciplined, but the public can use their misconduct records to hold police departments accountable.
It allows the public to say, why are you keeping this person now that, we have the record?
Gustavo Solis, KPBS News.